This week, how can reverse mortgage professionals more effectively engage with financial professionals? To answer that question, we have our special guest who shows us one tool that may help.
Building relationships is the way Mutual of Omaha has grown into one of the leading financial services companies in the world. Our reverse mortgage wholesale division is proud to carry on this 100-plus year tradition. To your borrowers, a reverse mortgage is more than a transaction. It's a promise of a better, more stress-free life. Our goal is to provide you, our valued client, with the best service and support possible so you can focus on helping your borrowers achieve the retirement of their dreams.
Welcome back to the Industry Leader Update. For over a decade or even two, our industry has sought ways to communicate with and engage financial professionals to embrace the importance of housing, wealth, and retirement income planning. The question is, where is one to begin? Many reverse mortgage originators are uncertain about how to approach an advisor in a clear, effective, and meaningful way. That's why today we're interviewing Ryan Ponsford, who has over 2 decades of experience in wealth management and is also the co-founder of Equity Wealth Academy. Ryan, thank you so much for returning to HECM World today.
Pleasure to be here.
Reverse mortgage professionals, they don't often have a financial services background. They're mortgage originators and professionals, and they may feel intimidated about approaching an advisor. So how are you addressing this challenge in the reverse mortgage industry?
Yeah, well, I guess there's a lot of ways to answer or address the question. A few initial thoughts come to mind is first, understanding the landscape that everybody's in and the headwinds that we're facing. So we can talk a little bit about that. The other one you mentioned around knowing your stuff. We always say that competence breeds confidence, right? So competence breeds confidence. So some of this is increasing your competence around your craft and understanding what they do. And so there's an element of both of those, along with the landscape. And so there's a kind of a whole array of things that I think matter. And then the other thing you mentioned is people can be intimidated. The reality is financial professionals, and that could be advisors, attorneys, CPAs, real estate agents, insurance agents, they all wake up in the morning, put their pants on the same way as we all do, and they're faced with a lot of the same challenges that the folks in our industry are, which is, how do I find new clients? How do I get more business? How do I continue to build and expand my business? So there's, nothing uniquely special. They can come across as intimidating, and part of that is a tactic that a lot of professionals use, and they speak their language in order to try and confuse you and give themselves power. So there's a whole kind of nuance there around understanding the language and the vernacular and using their language and vernacular in your conversations, which helps to accelerate those relationships as well.
If I understand what you're saying, it's somewhat of a two-pronged approach. I agree that the language that a reverse mortgage originator uses has to be accurate. For example, if someone tells an advisor that a reverse mortgage creates income rather than loan proceeds, they've undermined their own credibility and helped create skepticism in the mind of the advisor. How do you help prepare a reverse mortgage originator to be more competent and confident in working with a financial professional? Because, as you said, confidence comes from competency.
Yeah, so there's multiple ways. I will say, kind of on a funny side note, we actually just finished putting together a document which is 10 things to never say to a financial professional. So we just got that done. That'll show up on our website here in the next probably week or so. And it was all just little goofy things that I've heard people say that are cringe, right? It's you say those and you're a non-start with an advisor. So there's some, and one of those is, hey, you generate income, or, the illusion that this isn't somehow debt. People aren't dumb, so you can't dance around it. Go straight at it, and the math will speak for itself. So a lot of things we're doing. So as you know, I come from financial services. So myself and my colleagues, we've been financial advisors for over 25 years. We built practices, grew them, sold them, and then, it's been about 7 years ago now, got introduced to this space and really ended up coming in kicking and screaming. I've told you the story that somebody approached me and said, hey, we think there's a play here to integrate housing wealth into creating better retirement outcomes. And our firm was always very real estate friendly. So I said, okay, that makes sense. I agree. And then they actually said the word reverse mortgage. And when that came out of their mouth, I basically threw open my mouth and hid and ran for the hills and said, absolutely not, and resisted at all cost. They kept bugging me and finally said, well, just do the math. And I thought, fine, I'll do the math and prove you wrong. I did and was blown away by the opportunity. So that's what kind of changed my perspective on it. But I also realized that a couple of things. One, early on, most financial advisors have no idea how these things work. They may loosely know, but really they have no idea. A few years ago, I would say most of them were resistant. Now I think many are at least open or curious to hearing about it. So I think there's been a good amount of headway on that front. But the other thing I recognized when I started engaging with this industry is a lot of loan officers were not, in my opinion, prepared for those conversations. They didn't do a great job of explaining how they work. They did okay with some of the needs-based kind of last resort folks that are the ones that seem to be driven through lead programs and all that. But when it came to a more strategic use of housing wealth in retirement, there's more nuances and more things that need to be accounted for. The software in the industry doesn't take it into account. So you really have to understand core financial principles in order to apply that to the use of this, in most cases, this line of credit. And really, there's a lot of different reverse products out there. Probably the most interesting to me is the HECM with the revolving line of credit and the credit line growth and the nuance and flexibility that can create in retirement, in my opinion, is one of the most misunderstood and probably not used enough, the most underutilized tool in retirement planning.
So if I have some experience under my belt as a reverse mortgage originator and I want to make that foray into reaching out to financial professionals in my market, how could you help me to prepare better for success?
So if I speak specific to the Academy, we've really designed a few different ways to support loan officers in building their B2B side of their business. How do they build relationships, move away from dependency on leads, and create an independent recurring revenue style business? And so the few ways we've done that, one is we've created sessions that we call Time to Think. So Time to Think is a session where, a lot of people talk about education. You got to educate, you got to educate, you got to educate. And everybody in our industry talks about that. I don't sell stuff, I educate. That's great. The problem is education does not lead to action. It's nice intellectual stimulation, but really what we need is to get people to think differently. This industry has been going after financial professionals allegedly for 10, 15 years, probably more than that, actually, probably 20 more years, and has been largely unsuccessful. But everybody's doing the same thing over and over again. It's, reshuffle, deal hand, same hand, nothing changes. And so something has to change in how we're thinking or approaching the space. So a big part of that is messaging, right? Messaging, language, vernacular. So a lot of what we're doing is helping people think differently about how to position what you do as a professional, how to message what you do as a professional, how to engage advisors on equal footing as opposed to a sales product person in order to create, again, long-term relationships. Everything comes down to relationships, and relationships come down to adding value, right? Do I add value to your life? If I add value to your life, you want me in your life. If I'm there to take things from you, I'm a parasite and you don't want me in your life, right? So we call them parasites or pollinators. And so a lot of the things we teach is how do we more effectively add value to other people's businesses? How do we learn about them, serve them, and grow together so that you can approach it on equal footing? So that Time to Think is one way we do that. The other way I'll share that a lot of people have engaged us for is we do sessions we call case design, which is something we've been doing for years with loan officers at a couple of different companies. And that allows them to directly access our team if they have an advisor that they want us to go jointly connect or meet with, or they have a specific case that they want us to help unravel and design for them. As I mentioned earlier, the software does not always tell the story. And so we've had to create hundreds of tools that we've used with advisors and other professionals that illustrate more effectively what this looks like integrated into a plan. And so we can work directly with loan officers on that, as well as just directly with them on how to market, build, and expand your business. We've been doing that for years. And so we've created a lot of tools and resources to help loan officers be more intentional, more productive in order to get better results from their efforts and activities.
Ryan, there's one thing I've noticed about the Equity Wealth Academy that's quite different from other instructive courses for reverse mortgage pros, and that it doesn't cover the fundamentals of the home equity conversion mortgage, but rather shows how to incorporate the language of financial planners into how a HECM can be used to leverage housing, wealth, and retirement planning.
Yeah, exactly. So, we're assuming there's a baseline of knowledge for people that would enter our academy. Now, we expect there'll be some people that might be maybe traditional loan officers that are going to move their way into the reverse space, which I don't think would be unwise. It'd probably be a smart thing to do. So there is some kind of core competency stuff, but for the most part, this is advanced tools for the more experienced type of loan officers, the people that want to hang out with more experienced loan officers. And so a lot of it is business development. How do you grow your business with intention? How do you language, communicate, speak, and message this differently than everybody else? And I think, you and I were talking about line of credit growth specifically, and that's the first course we built. And the reason is I've been out with hundreds of loan officers, and you can put 5 of them in a room, have them explain line of credit growth. And for the most part, you're probably going to be more confused at the end than when you started. And I'm using blanket statements. There's some that are great about this, and I don't mean to disparage anybody, but the reality is nobody has a monopoly on all the great ways to say things. And so we've had these conversations thousands of times now with advisors and learned some of the little keys to how it's presented in order to, again, accelerate understanding for them, at the same time expanding and enhancing that relationship with them. So it is more of an advanced training. And then, as I think I've shared with you also, we also have an entire community, which is a place where the different people in our academy can come together, communicate, connect, share content, articles, ideas. We have little meetups, and it's really to solve the challenge that this industry has historically been all separate. Everybody seems to fight with each other and think that we are each other's competition. And the reality is this industry is tiny, minuscule compared to the actual opportunity out there in the marketplace. My opinion, you could put a loan officer in about any corner in any major city, and they will have thousands of opportunities to connect with people that would qualify and benefit from the integration of home equity access into their retirement plan. So we aren't the competition of each other. Let's embrace and learn from each other. And our competition is the messaging, the perception that exists in the marketplace. And if we can get unified in how we articulate and explain this, and we can get unified in serving rather than taking, and we can get unified in how to engage families in order to create better outcomes, then I believe we've got a chance of actually moving this industry forward. And the demographic is growing exponentially, and we're not growing with it. And that's backwards. And there's a reason. And somehow we got to get enough smart people in a room to start solving it, addressing it, and moving it forward.
That is so true. A recent commentary here on HECM World entitled "The Most Feared Loan in America" points to just what you're saying. Well, Ryan, your training course is going to be invaluable to our industry, I believe, and the reverse mortgage professionals that are watching today. In the show notes, by the way, I've included a link for viewers to reach out to Ryan and learn more about the Equity Wealth Academy. Here at HECM World, we're going to continue to bring you ideas, tools, and concepts that will bring value to you as a reverse mortgage pro. And having audited the course, I found it to be very informative, easy to navigate, and understandable. Great work, and thank you, Ryan.
Shan, it's a pleasure. Always love your program, and appreciate all of it out there that follows you. You are an industry leader, and it's a treat to be able to get side by side with you to share some of these concepts and try and move this whole thing forward. So appreciate the work you're doing. It is needed and does not go unnoticed. So thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you. And that concludes this episode of the Industry Leader Update. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. And also, if you would be so kind as to share this video with your colleagues and friends on LinkedIn. Don't forget, we have a YouTube channel where you can subscribe. And if you hit that notification bell, you will get notifications in YouTube every time we have a new video. Also, each and every week we bring you the most recent reverse mortgage related news or news that impacts older homeowners on our weekly podcast, HECM World Weekly. You can find us here at HECMWorld.com, or you can also listen on Apple Music, Spotify, or on Podbean. Thanks again for joining us, and be sure to return next week for more reverse mortgage news, commentary, and analysis you'll only find here at HECM World. Have a great week.